All right, hello everyone. Welcome to our post AT through hike live Q&A session. As you guys probably know because you're watching my channel, I'm Cobweb Rose, and on the screen on top is Snapshot, and on the bottom of the screen is Mountain Crusher, who I'm sure you guys will recognize from their many appearances as themselves in all of our vlogs from this year's through hike. So thanks for being here, guys. I appreciate you making time for this and all of the pre-session work that we did because I don't know how to use OBS and just learned today. So hopefully this goes well, guys. I am grateful that you guys are commenting your favorite ice cream flavors in the chat. Figured that'd be probably a pretty good icebreaker, or I guess in this case, ice cream breaker. I do love ice cream. You guys know this. Thank you, MC. Thank you. So if you guys want to, when you're done commenting your favorite ice cream flavors, if you have questions for us to answer, please type them in the chat. We will answer them as soon as we see them. And if you have a specific person you have a question aimed at, please type their name first, like Snapshot. I want to know this. Give you guys a little bit of time to think about it.
Nice.
Anybody
we
else
also have some questions that were submitted beforehand too that we can always dive into if we need to.
Actually, let's dive in one of those now.
Yeah, might as well, right?
Yeah.
So what are the questions that we have not covered in all the other video review things?
You know, honestly, we made so many videos I really don't even remember at this point.
This is true.
Okay, what's one of the most common questions you've been asked since getting home? Snapshot? Or MC, whoever's an answer first.
Questions I've been asked. I don't know, MC, you go first. I gotta think about that.
I think my favorite question, by far, that I've been asked, and the most common, is, wait, what did you do for food? To which I tell people, I bought 3 or 4 days worth of food, and then walked 3 or 4 days. And then bought 3 or 4 days worth of food. People were, you didn't just forage? You weren't like hunting and scavenging? Like, no. By no means was I doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And they always just have this like wide eyes, like, what? That's possible? I'm like, yeah. Yeah.
It's the wild grocery store.
I always get questions about, I always mention it was a really wet year on the AT, like one of the wettest in history. And they're like, oh, so when like it stormed, like, what did you do? Like, well, we walked north.
We just kept hiking. We got wet.
Yeah, pretty much. But that seems to, it's usually simple answers like that, but people just have a hard time wrapping their head around that, I guess.
Yeah, or like, how do you poop in the woods? That's always a good one. Like, how do you poop? Well, I mean, the same way you poop, it's just I have to dig a hole first. a 6-inch hole.
I squat down. I relax some muscles. I clean up afterwards.
Oh,
same
boy.
way that you do.
Oh, boy. All right, so somebody in the chat asked, do you guys still have hiker hunger? My best answer is never really got it. Like, it would come and go. Like, it stopped in a couple of times on my hike, and then I was like, let me eat all of the things for like a day or two, and then I never got it. And then I got to the point when I was in the Northeast and I was hemorrhaging weight because I would literally walk through the grocery store and my gag reflex would get activated because I'm like, I don't want to eat any of this food. This all looks terrible.
I think mine continued on. I had hiker hunger quite a bit on trail. And there was a period after the hike, probably for like 2 weeks maybe, that I still wanted to eat everything. And I let myself eat more than normal, but then it kind of tapered off because I wasn't hiking, 15 miles a day. So my body just started not wanting food as much. And I think by this point, I'm kind of back to like a normal amount of food, and I don't crave more. So I did for a while, but I not so long that it became a weight gain problem.
For me, my hiker hunger kind of died almost as soon as I left trail. But one thing about me is that I will for my entire life, I'm someone who will just snack. If I have a box of Cheez-Its, I will sit there and I will eat the entire thing. And that is why I've had to stop buying as many Cheez-Its and Goldfish and crackers, because I'll just sit there and I will eat like an entire box in a single sitting. And for that exact reason, I can't enjoy white cheddar Cheez-Its anymore, because when I was young, I ate 3.5 boxes in a single sitting, and I can't stand the taste of them anymore.
Oh, this is never a good idea. Oh, somebody in the chat said that we did forage for blueberries when we were on trail. This is in fact true. There was a lot of blueberry eating that happened on trail. Actually, when we were in New York on Bear Mountain, there was a lot of raspberry eating that happened too. I have no shame in this. I got Bubba addicted to picking and eating blueberries too.
And there were a ton of raspberries on Bear Mountain because it was closed when we went through, so there were no tourists picking all the raspberries, so we got them all.
Oh, it was so good. I have no regrets.
Yeah.
We'd definitely eat more of those. Okay, still on the subject of eating, I get asked this all the time. Do I still eat that much ice cream? The answer is no. I think I've eaten ice cream like maybe 5 times since I've gotten off trail. Ice cream was one of those high calorie, had some nutrient density foods that I just never got tired of on trail, and especially in the hot summer, it was really a pick-me-up. So I do love ice cream. However, my on-trail addiction did not follow me off trail, which is probably why I haven't gained a ton of weight since getting home. So another question that we get all the time is, how does it feel to be home? How does it feel to be home, guys? It's kind of weird.
It's weird, but it's not. It's definitely different than trail life. So there's all the obvious things like, well, I'm not, waking up outside and walking all day, and I'm in society, so I have all the comforts of society. It's weird, but it's not. It's something I think I was kind of ready for and mentally preparing for the last couple 100 miles on trail. Mm-hmm. So it's obviously a big adjustment, but I don't think it's hit me too hard. I mean, some changes are good, some changes are bad. Like, I wish I was hiking still, but I also like sleeping under a roof. So it's a win-lose, but I think it's going to take a while to fully get used to.
I mean, I, after finishing the hike, just kind of chilled for like a couple of weeks at home. Just drove around, visited people, drove Snapshot to the airport, somewhat in that order. And then I drove over to West Virginia and started a new job. And so having that like set thing, like a couple of weeks after I finished, helped me kind of like still have a goal ahead of me, because for a lot of people, when they finish this hike, it's just for the last 6 months, every day they've been waking up with a very clear goal ahead of them, something they're looking forward to, and it's very concrete. And then they get off trail and suddenly they don't have anything concrete to look forward to. But I did have something to look forward to, which I think helped me.
Yeah, and for me, it's been, I've noticed that since I've gotten home, I've had a lot of a lot more anxiety, mainly associated with actually being in 4 walls, like with a roof over my head and not like a purpose every single day. So if the way I've handled that is I've actually picked up running. I was never a runner before the trail, but my cardio is amazing right now, and my body's like, oh, you can totally do this. So I started doing that. And so that's been helping too, because that also gets me outside. So yeah, but it's very weird being at home, and I still find myself with such a big disproportionate appreciation for things like a trash can and a flush toilet and a shower every night and a warm bed, and especially right now, central heating and air, because it's been in the 20s like every single morning for the last week. So definitely appreciate that. Oh, and the option that if it's pouring rain outside, I don't have to go out. That's so nice. So nice.
That, and you don't need to put wet socks on every day for like 3 or 4 days in a row.
Yes, that part is definitely magical. Okay, so question from the chat to everyone. Are you planning future hikes, or are you glad to take a break from hiking?
Definitely planning future hikes, but also excited to take a break for a while. I to do the the Lost Coast Trail in Northern California with a friend of mine out here. And I'm trying to get the whole Tramily together next summer for the Tahoe Rim Trail out in the Sierras here. Other than that, I think it's just going to be day hikes and maybe a trip to the Sierras for a weekend or two. But no big giant through hikes yet. Not ruling them out for the future, but not immediately for sure.
For
MC,
me,
anything in the works?
Well, there's one thing. Well, obviously the Tahoe Rim Trail with Snapshot and the Tramily, which I would love to do, and we're gonna work that out as it gets closer. But we're not going into the high mountains of the Sierras in the middle of winter where there's still snow late in July, because for a hike that's lowest elevation is about 6,100 feet, that seems unwise. Beyond that, the Allegheny Trail, which runs through this here state of West Virginia, and at its southern terminus actually connects to the AT, right actually at the spot where I rejoined these two after getting back with my younger brother after getting back from his graduation. And so yeah, I'm planning to do that. It's about 300 miles long, so about 3 weeks. Not sure exactly when I'm going to do it, and fingers crossed if I can manage to coordinate it with one of the supervisors, I might be able to do it and get hours for it, which would be awesome to be getting 12 out, probably logging like 12 odd hours a day every day for like 3 weeks. Certainly would not be complaining about that.
Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome. So you guys will find this out in a couple of days because that's when my videos are going to start dropping for it. I actually went and hiked the Foothills Trail last week now. So you guys will be able to see my video log from that starting on Sunday. And as far as things go, I'd love to do that Tahoe Rim Trail with the guys whenever they end up doing it next year. And I've got my eyes fixed on a couple of shorter hikes. The Art Loeb Trail here in Asheville is definitely on the list. Finishing up the Long Trail in Vermont is on the list as well. So when you through hike the AT, you actually hike 105.5 miles of the Long Trail, and that trail is only 272 miles, I think. So you've already hiked basically half of it, and you don't have to do it as a through. Like if I wanted to go back and pick up where we left off, that's an option. But that's definitely on the list as well. And then I don't know, maybe eventually the MST, the Mountains to Sea Trail that runs the width of North Carolina, but I don't know, we'll see. People always ask us, like, whenever you're hiking, like actively hiking the AT, haven't even finished it yet, like if we're going to go do the PCT next, and then of course that leads to like, are you going to finish your Triple Crown and do the CDT as well? My answer right now is not at this moment. I have no plans for these things.
Yeah,
so,
one thing at a time.
One thing at a time.
Yeah.
We it's 6 months is a very like long commitment for a hike. And all of these hikes take about 6 months. So
And it takes longer. Well, it took me longer than that just to plan for that 6 months. Like it took years of thinking about it and planning for it. And there's a lot that goes into taking 6 months off for most people. So,
I know. Sorry, were you done?
Yeah.
I know for me, I can't say that I'm particularly interested in ever doing another multi-thousand mile hike. I think 500 would probably be my cap going forward, just because spending that long away from home and away from community and away from church and all that is just like, doesn't really hold as much appeal to me now. And while, yeah, this was an awesome adventure and I am so happy I did it, I don't know if I'm going to ever go and decide to walk, the vertical length of the states again.
this is completely fair. It is a very long commitment. So, a lot of people ask, how do you get the time and the money to hike the trail? So for me, I was working as a travel nurse before I started the trail. So I was considered a contract worker. So I basically just, took a break between contracts and saved up money with that. And then, of course, my husband was my trail boss while I was gone. He was still working the whole time. So that's really how we were able to do it. Snapshot, you did a lot of saving and you quit your job, right?
I saved up for at least a year. I don't remember exactly how long before. I made the decision to hike the trail about a year and a half before I did. Saved up my money and quit my job. And there's really no easy way to do it. You have to be willing to not work for 6 months unless you're in a very unique situation. But yeah, I was at the same job for 12 years and quit that.
And what were you doing with that job?
Yeah, so
What was your job, the one you left?
Oh, I worked in film in Los Angeles. And I was looking to move out of the city. So this was a perfect sort of in between for me. But for the people that want to go hike the trail, that think, oh, well, I have a full-time job and a career and all that kind of stuff. If you want it bad enough, you can find a way to do it. It just takes a lot of dedication and planning.
Mm-hmm. And then MC, you saved for a while too. What were you doing before you got on trail?
So spring of 22, I graduated college, and then I immediately started working as a park ranger at a regional park not too far from where I lived, and worked from May until February of the next year and just saved what I could. And ultimately I had about $8,000 to my name. And then at the end of the trail, I had about $8,000 less dollars to my name. So one could say that I budgeted perfectly for the trail.
This is completely fair.
Expensive. That's something we should talk about because the price of the trail is gone up a lot in the past few years. And the rule of thumb in the past used to be like $1,000 a month, which is not at all what it is now. No. It's closer to 2,000 if you really want to do it comfortably.
Yeah.
Depending on how you do it and all that.
Yeah. You could do it at $1,000 a month. I know people that were doing it at a lower budget than that. But the thing is, you're not getting the same experiences of you get into town and you go to a restaurant, you order a bunch of food, and you eat a bunch, and you pig out, and then you go back to the hotel or the hostel you're staying at. The people that want to do it cheaper, generally, you stay right before a town, hike in, spend the late morning to early afternoon in the town doing all of your resupply, and then you leave. And you don't spend the night there, which means, you don't spend the night there, so you don't get to just kind of spread everything out, relax, take a shower, hang out with other people in town the same amount, which saves a lot of money in the long run, but also, to me, it was just worth spending nights in town and hanging out with people.
Yeah.
It's also really easy from the get-go to say, hey, I'm doing this cheaply and this is how I'm going to do it. And while on paper, that's fine. When you're 4 days into a stretch and you haven't had a shower or a real meal, things change pretty quickly and you're willing to spend money for a day to be comfortable and eat real food. So yes, you can do it. It's just, there's a difference between planning to do that on paper and saying, yeah, this is my budget and I can make it work, and actually being out there and doing it.
Something Kent, where we were just desperately trying to use that coin-operated shower.
Best shower. Best shower. Oh, yeah.
That needed.
I literally think that shower saved my hike.
That might have been the best shower on trail, actually.
Yeah, and it was like so
nice,
janky.
Bougie, nice town of Kent, and it was just a nice, old coin-operated shower, and it was not a nice shower by most standards, but for us at that time, it was the best.
Oh, it was everything.
Like $4 for 2 minutes or something.
Yeah.
it
Well,
was not a good rate.
I know, it really wasn't. Well, I mean, like, when you get on trail, you actually find you have a lot of expenses that you didn't think of beforehand. Like, if you want to do laundry, most places charge you, like most hostels will charge you $5 to do your laundry. Or if you're going to a laundromat, a lot of times it was like what, $6 to $8. If you were trying to wash and dry your clothing, which of course we always just threw all of our clothing into the same washer and dryer. Like we didn't care. We could sort it out afterwards.
It still adds up though, even with 3 people. It's like you're doing laundry every time you have the opportunity to.
And splitting hotel rooms is that splitting hotel rooms. It gets cheaper when you have 3 people in a hotel room, but also then the one person draws the short straw, which wasn't really drawing a short straw. It was we rotating.
Who sleeps on the floor?
We slept on the floor.
which worked really well for us. I know a lot of Tramilies who they were comfortable, like, you know, when you're in a shelter, one thing you have to understand about AT culture is, like, when you're in a shelter, you're literally sleeping shoulder to shoulder to shoulder to shoulder with random people that you've never met before, and the only thing between you and them is a sleeping bag. Like, so a lot of thru hikers, out of necessity of the fact we don't have a big budget, is, you know, they're gonna share a space in a room. A lot of people will, like, we heard of people cramming. What was the most we heard ended up in a room together? 8 people in like a two bedroom room in a hotel. So yeah, you know, it was people sharing beds, like people sleeping on the floor, like yeah. So
you weren't there, but in Gatlinburg, I think it was 12, right? They shared the room.
Like
maybe it was 8.
It was that's insane.
12 in one room.
Yeah, but I mean, when you break it down, though, they were probably paying like $10 a piece for this room, and I mean, really, all you're doing is sleeping there. So you know,
it was about $7.
Yeah, exactly.
Another detail: only 2 people got room keys. So if you stepped out and you didn't have a room key, you better hope that someone was awake when you knocked to come back.
Yeah, we actually
sitting in the hallway on his phone. I got locked down.
That's so sad. Yeah, we actually chose to do our like room splits in town a little more expensively than most other people, because we would only share like the room with just our Tramily pretty much the entire time, and then you know, we rotated who got, you know, each one of the beds in the room. So we'd always get a 2-bedroom, and then somebody would sleep on the floor on their air mattress. I mean, it's not like we didn't have that. That's actually a question I get a lot, because everybody is like, oh, you're married, your husband was okay with you sharing hotel rooms with a couple single guys? I'm like, yeah, he was fine with it, because, you know, it's literally what you do, because I can't afford to pay for my own place every single time. But you know, we weren't sharing beds, and you guys were always extremely respectful. We were all respectful of each other, so I think it worked out really well for everyone's budget.
We weren't really strangers by that point. Like, we had gotten to know each other pretty well by that point. And the thing with the AT is, like, the friendships are fast tracked. When you meet somebody, you can learn everything about them very quickly, because that you're just out there and you do nothing but talk to each other. There's no you know, beating around the bush and all these like social norms. It's like, no, you're out there together in the mud and the rain, and you get to know each other very quickly. Yeah,
and it's like
so
I'm gonna go poop behind that tree now. And everyone's like, okay, cool, we'll look the other way.
Exactly. I mean, there were times that I couldn't get off trail to pee, and you got one person walked north, the other person walked south. You turned your back, you made sure nobody walked up on me. Like, if we were hemmed in on both sides by like rocks and cliffs and brush or whatever. So, you know, you watch each other's backs, and you know, nobody needs to talk about the weather because you're all out in it. It sucks for everybody. So.
Everybody's yelling at the weather the same way.
Everyone's screaming at the heavens the same way. So somebody asked in the chat, have we stayed in touch with Lucky? And if so, did he complete his hike? So Lucky actually got off in Damascus at the 500-mile mark. Actually, he got off a little shy of that because he did 2 days slack packing southbound to get to the 500-mile mark. We did stay in touch with him throughout the hike. I sent him pictures from all of our milestones, you know, the halfway point, of course, Mount Katahdin. And so he definitely stayed invested in our hike that way, and expressed how proud he was of us finishing, which, if you're watching this, Lucky, we did miss you the rest of the way, and thank you for all of your support of us as we went through our trip. But yeah, Lucky did not complete his hike. He decided at 500 miles that he had gotten what he needed out of the hike, what he wanted out of the hike, and he was tired of being a dirty hiker and wanted to go home and see his family and spend his time with them. And I completely respect that. He knew what he wanted, and he got what he wanted out of the hike, and he did what made him happy.
He left on his terms, which is a good way to go.
Yeah.
And I remember Brainstorm, she finished Vermont. She did most of the trail, and she finished Vermont. And she said, I got what I wanted out of this. I don't need to stay here and spend money and keep going. I've done what I wanted, and I've gotten the growth, and I've seen myself change, and I'm okay with that. And I was like, okay. I couldn't personally walk that far and then just be like, you know what? I'm good. But I mean, if you got what you wanted out of it, you're out there for you.
For sure.
Okay, so someone else just asked, did you think you would stay together to the end as a Tramily when you started out? That's a really good question.
I don't know. It
So
kind
I
of just happened.
I thought about this before, and I knew. So I met MC on Approach Trail, which is day one for me before I got to the top of Springer Mountain. At that time, I was like, oh, this is a cool guy. Like, we tend to get along really well, and we're hiking about the same pace. So I hiked with him to the top of Springer Mountain, met his mom at the top, and he got off because he had a viral sinus infection. Good times. And I thought, okay, well, I'm never going to see him again. He's gone. So he left. Then I met back up with him at Neal's Gap, and that's where I met Cobweb. Ended up joining them later that day, hiked with them, camped with them. But it still felt like, oh, we're just sort of tagging along together. It didn't feel like a complete Tramily, like we're going to stick together forever in my mind. Because I know so much can happen on the trail. I was like, you know what? Okay. But things changed when we went through the Smokies together. When we were all faced with really, really bad conditions, and we were all put in extremely uncomfortable places together, and we pushed through that experience and got through the Smokies together, that's when I realized that this was going to stick and that this was going to last until Katahdin. I think right in that section was when it clicked for me. And it became clear. It's like, oh yeah, this is a thing that's going to last. For me, at least. I don't know. What about you guys?
For me, I'll say a little bit of extra background on my mindset regarding a Tramily and a hiking group beforehand is that I made the resolution before I started hiking that I wasn't going to get stuck in a group of people that I didn't like just because it made it cheaper or just because, oh, I made it this far with them, I might as well keep going, or it's easier, this is what I've done. I resolved long before I got on trail that was not something I was going to have happen to me. So I met up with these folks, fortunately, very early. Snapshot before the trail, before we even hit Springer, and Cobweb at the first shelter. And I was the rookiest backpacker among them. And
this is your first backpacking trip.
This is my first backpacking trip, and I did very well, I think.
You did.
It was a brick wall of a learning curve, let me tell you that. I learned many things, and honestly, I'm glad I stuck with them. I think they're pretty all right.
World's okayest Tramily.
Thanks.
Well, it's funny because like people are always like, oh, did you start out solo? And I'm like, kind of, but like my mentor Christus Cowboy started with me, and I was open to finding a Tramily because I really hate hiking solo. Like I don't mind the hiking part itself, hiking solo, but I hate camping by myself. I always have. So I was actually totally fine. I was like, okay, whatever, whoever I meet on trail, if they want to hike with me, cool. If they don't, whatever, that's fine. I'm gonna let whatever happens happen. And when I met MC, when he still had his government name and not a trail name at the first shelter on the first night on trail, I was like, there were like 40 people there. I'd met so many people, and he was the only one that in the back of my mind, yeah, there were so many people in the back of my mind, though, my gut was like, yeah, you're gonna hike to Katahdin with this guy. And I was like, oh, there's no shot. And then the next day he's blasting past us on a hill, and I'm like, hey, you wanna hike with us today? He's like, okay.
I remember Cobweb, that one guy trying to set up his tent for like 2 hours.
Oh yeah, the poor thing.
Shelter. I felt so bad for him.
Yeah, I think it was his first backpacking trip too, MC.
It was so cold that night.
It was
so cold.
It was very cold that night. We had the weirdest weather this year, like the whole year. We started out in the teens in Georgia with like 0 degree or single digit wind chill, and like that was where we started. Snapshot got frozen over the first night that he had on trail. Yep. Which like kudos to you for staying on trail, because like being from California, you guys obviously have no idea what cold is.
Yeah, it rained all day on my first full day of hiking, and then froze over that night, so everything was wet and then frozen overnight. That was good times. Yeah,
and you stayed on trail, which is it's so impressive. It's so impressive.
It's more than the vast majority. I mean, the dropout rate was even more intense this year than it usually is.
Yeah, it was wild. But I mean,
Go ahead.
Oh, you're good, MC. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I remember hearing somewhere that the standard dropout rate is 75% of the people that start the trail don't finish. That's kind of the average most years.
That's staggering.
Somewhere that this year it was like only like 11 or 12% of people that started finished, which is like an insanely low number.
Yeah, well, especially when you consider that these aren't just like random people picked that's like thought, yeah, I'll hike the trail. It's like, no, these are people that went out knowing what it entailed. For 2,200 miles, they're like, yeah, I'm going to do that. Like it takes a little bit of crazy even to attempt that.
Yeah, it takes a lot of crazy to attempt it.
It takes even more crazy to finish it.
It's only 11%, like that's staggering.
Yeah, it's wild. But I mean, we went from freezing temperatures to drought conditions, to the wildfire smoke from Canada making our AQI over 180 for days on end, and all of our families texting us being like, you guys are inside, right? We're like, no, we're 20 miles from civilization. How are we supposed to be inside? Where was it? It's to blistering heat. I mean, we were in a heat wave with like 90 degrees, 90% humidity from northern Pennsylvania to pretty much Vermont. We got the floods in New York. We were a couple days shy of Bear Mountain when that whole area flooded. We walked into Fort Montgomery, 1 or 2 days after it had severely flooded there. We went over Bear Mountain when it was closed, and then we got rain, super insane rains in Vermont, especially on Killington. Yeah. We almost died coming down Killington. And then
New York.
New York. And then, we went into New Hampshire and Maine, and it was just so wet. It was so muddy. Like when you weren't drenched in sweat, you were drenched in rain, and when you weren't drenched in rain, you were drenched in mud. Like, it was wild. And then the day before we summited, a hurricane hit Maine, right where we were. We hiked for like an hour in a hurricane, so it was a wild year. Hurricane Lee, yep. Which by the way is Mountain Crusher's last name, so it was very fitting. Government name. All right, so someone asked in the chat, will you put together a video of your edited bloopers? My answer to that is probably not, because my daily vlogs had all of our bloopers out there for all of the world to see. I was a one-take wonder. I did not refilm anything. So what you guys saw was my first take of everything. It was very genuine reaction to everything. And same with the guys. So what you see with us really is what you get. We are exactly like that in real life.
I can think of 1, maybe 2 times on the whole trail where you redid a take.
Yeah.
So like it was,
and it's usually for the tap of the blaze at the beginning of the video.
Yeah.
I don't know if there ever was.
That's fair. Yeah. I did re-tap a blaze a couple of times because I found a way cooler blaze, or I couldn't reach it, which happened to me a couple of times. All right, somebody's asked, any AT tattoos yet?
Not yet, but there will be one for me and MC at the very least.
I'm planning on it.
Yeah. They're planning.
Get, the money.
The monies.
Which.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back of my calf, probably my right leg. I haven't decided yet. Probably.
Snapshot. You know what you should do?
Mm-hmm.
You should get a waist to shoulder full torso tattoo of the trail, all of the states, everything.
Wow, that would be intense.
I don't think I have the money, time, or patience, or pain tolerance for any of that.
That would be so expensive. That would be really expensive. That would take a lot of trips back to the tattoo parlor again.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a bit much. I think I'm gonna go simple. AT logo 2023. The mileage that works for me.
Yeah, I have no plans at this time. Also, someone said that our Killington experience was actually scary on their side of the screen, so they can't imagine how it was for us. The answer to that's not a question, but the answer is it was absolutely terrifying. And the guys can tell you that I literally, they had to sit with me in the hotel room afterwards and wait for me to fall asleep, because every time I closed my eyes that night, I was back on Killington running down the mountain thinking I'm gonna die. So yes, it was extremely frightening, and I'm very grateful for all of the guys that helped me get through that, which included the two that you see on your screen right now, and also the Ellen Degenerates, our friends High Def, Buzzsaw, and Lord Greybush, because I pulled into a shelter because I got ahead of the guys, and they made sure that I got all the way down the mountain when I gotten separated from these guys. So yes, it was quite the experience.
Yeah, we all
for
got
us.
separated. It was nuts.
Yeah,
So-
it was bonkers.
Just talking about my own personal experience, I was just pulling up the rear, sitting in the back of the group, as I often did at this point in the trail, and the storm rolled in. And if we had known the storm was going to be that intense, we would have stuck together. We would have like made sure we were looking out for each other. But no one had any idea it would be that bad. It was 4 inches of rain in 2 hours. Nobody predicted that it would be that bad. And I remember walking down the mountain in, water that was ankle deep, then it's calf deep, then in places it was knee deep, on the trail, mind you, and thinking, if something happens to me and I, let's say, broke my ankle or got ground shock from lightning, there's no one behind me.
Yeah.
I'm the last person. The only way that someone would realize something was up would be if they got to the bottom of the mountain, waited like an hour or two, realized I wasn't there, and then they had to come back up the mountain. And then I remember thinking, all right, I have 3 options right now. I can either backtrack up the mountain to the shelter that Cobweb had just mentioned and try to ride out the storm, but there was no cell service in this area, so I wouldn't have had any communication, so I was a little hesitant to do that. Also hesitant to go back up a mountain in a massive storm.
Yeah.
And my second thought was, okay, I could step off the trail and stay still. So that way I am no longer in knee-deep water and at a much lesser risk of ground shock. Or option 3, I keep walking. I get off that mountain. I was like, I'm not spending any time longer on this mountain than I have to. So I kept walking, and I got off that mountain.
Yeah.
I didn't see a soul on my way down. It was completely empty because I assumed MC was behind me, Cobweb was ahead of me. I was like, well, the number one priority right now is getting off the mountain. So I'm just going to keep hiking. And if I see somebody, I'll see how they're doing. We'll meet up and we'll hike down together. But until then, I'm going down. So that's what I did. I buzzed past everything. I didn't stop anywhere.
Yeah.
Fell a couple times on the way down because the water was that deep on the whole trail. So you can't see what you're stepping on in the water. So if there's a rock, a twig, a root, you don't know. So you step down hoping it's going to be flat ground. And a couple times it wasn't. So I took a tumble there, but just kept moving. I was running on pure adrenaline, I think, for that 2 hours or whatever it was. I don't think I felt anything other than just my heart pounding, like basically running down the trail.
Yeah, we were
all
running on adrenaline, literally.
On a much more fun note, I remember after the last shelter and us Snapshot and I trying to get into, what was the name of it? Katahdin Streams, the campground that we stayed at?
The Birches? No,
Katahdin.
No, well, we didn't stay there. We just stopped in the ranger station.
No.
In the hurricane?
Wherever we got the food and stayed in the cabin.
Wait.
Katahdin Stream.
No, that was A-Ball. Yeah. A-Ball Bridge.
A-Ball.
Yeah, the night before the hurricane.
We were like 2 miles, 3 miles out or so, and we were like, all right, guys, because Struggle and Cobweb had gone off ahead of us, and we were, Snapshot, Bubba, and I were sitting there just reading through the journal entries, because this was the last shelter going northbound.
Yeah.
So all these people that were signing off, giving these heartfelt messages.
Oh, all the feels.
Then I remember Snapshot, Bubba, and I were like, oh no, we think the store closes in like an hour. We have 4 miles to go. Guys, let's go! And Snapshot, Bubba, and I were basically parkouring down that mountain. Clocked us at doing a 13.5-minute mile at one point, which is like faster than a 4-mile-an-hour pace of just bounding rock to rock to rock to
over
rock.
rock fields.
Oh, I hope we don't die!
Yeah, it was. You guys were keeping the same pace, trying to get out of the 100-mile wilderness to go get food from the camp store that we were taking when we were outrunning the lightning storm on Killington. Oh man, yeah, that was
Yep.
wild times. Remember, we will
seeking
always
other
hike for
opportunities
food.
was in the parking lot.
Yeah, that was a good place to be. You definitely you made the right decisions. We definitely were not.
Yeah.
We were not as smart as you. We actually didn't even know that. Like, we knew it was supposed to rain that day. We didn't know it was supposed to be that bad of a lightning storm, or we wouldn't have gone up on the mountain, because we were actually at a trail angel's house, and I know she would have kept us for another day. So, yeah, definitely make wise decisions when it comes to the weather, guys. Just because you're through hiking does not mean you're invincible. And these are facts.
It's an interesting balance, though, because if you didn't hike every time rain was in the forecast, you'd never finish the
You'd
trail.
never finish the
So
trail.
you have to like carefully balance of like, is it going to be thunderstorms? And how much rain is going to fall? Is it going to be a half inch and it's going to drizzle all day? Okay, fine. Is it going to be thunderstorms? That's different. Am I hiking a 4,000-foot peak? Okay, that changes things also. So there's so many variables that you have to kind of get used to judging those.
Yeah.
Especially because the weather's not always accurate. So
yeah.
It's a delicate balance.
It is, and it's really hard to find accurate weather on the AT. Like, basically, if the weatherman said there's a 5% chance of rain, that means 100% when you're on the AT. Like, it's just gonna rain. Just expect it. It's really just the thunderstorms you have to watch out for. Actually, somebody asked pre-live stream, did you find the toughest times on trail during the days you had inclement weather, and what were some of the things that you did to push through that condition and get to a better place? For me, the answer to that is yes. Summertime absolutely kicked my butt. Actually, I almost quit in the summertime. Like, legitimately, I thought about quitting because my body doesn't handle heat well. So every day when, it was 90 degrees and 90% humidity, and I had spent all day like chugging water and electrolytes and still gone into camp every night, dehydrated, hypoglycemic, and with a terrible migraine where I literally just couldn't even function. I could lay there with my eyes closed and pray that my head would stop pounding. Like, when that happened to me every single day, yeah, the trail was really tough. Like, I remember northern Pennsylvania through like southern Vermont being tough, and it was because of the weather. And it was the same with New Hampshire when we went through the Whites. Like, I was happiest in the Whites when we had good weather, and I was so freaking miserable and annoyed with the Whites when it was just cold rain day after day. We were socked in, didn't have any of those great views that we were supposed to have.
Never had good weather.
Yeah, it was definitely the tough times on trail were related to.
I'd say that the heat was almost just as, if not more, dangerous than the rain was, because we were sweating so much and so quickly that our bodies couldn't absorb new electrolytes and fluids faster than we were draining them. So there's basically no way to stay properly hydrated and also cover the miles. So you're playing catch up every evening. You're trying to overhydrate yourself, rehydrate for the next day. And over the course of 3 days, back-to-back hot days where you're sweating all day, you end up dehydrated no matter how hard you try. It's exhausting. Your energy levels drop. It becomes a real problem. People don't talk about that a lot, but I think we had a really special year that we got the wet and we got the super high heat and humidity. So yeah, we got it all. But if I had to choose one or the other, I would prefer to be rained on than hike through 90 degrees with high humidity day after day.
I remember one day, just going off of what Snapshot just said, I remember one day I drank 7 or 8 liters of water and peed like maybe 3 times in the entire day, which is not an equal in-out ratio.
No.
I'll say that much.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Somebody asked about our stay at the Knock.
At the Knock. Yes.
Oh, who wants to
rant about the Knock?
Oh, I will always rant about the Knock. We'll rant about the Knock.
Pop off.
Oh my gosh. So we actually were looking forward to getting into the Knock. Like, we really were. We were so excited. We had booked our bunk room and everything. And like, we got down into the Knock, and of course, got ice cream first thing, which was the best part about the Knock. And then, we had already paid for our rooms and everything. Well, when you're at the Knock, something you have to understand is you walk in, when you're coming northbound, you walk into the Knock. The Knock is here. You get your general store, which has the food supply in it. And if you need towels or laundry or bedding, like bed sheets, that's where you have to get it. And by the way, they do charge you for bed sheets, and they do charge you for towels. They also charge you for laundry. which within like 2 hours of us being at the knock, the power went out. So we didn't get to do our laundry until the next morning because Lucky got up super early and went to go do it. But anyway, so you walk it. Here's a general store. Here's like the road that runs through, and then you've got the outfitter here, which of course has standard outfitter prices. Nothing crazy there. And then the restaurants next to the outfitter, overpriced. Not like the world's greatest food, but it was fine. It was town food. And then you walk across this really pretty bridge to the other side of the river. There's like a couple of things. And then you have to keep walking to get to the bunks. So you walk back through this parking lot, over this railroad track, up this big long hill, like back farther through this other parking lot, and then you get to the bunk area. And it's literally like being at summer camp, like right down to the communal kitchen with all the random pots and pans and the random like almost expired food items that have been left there without names, and like the community bathrooms, which by the way, we had no light or hot water because the power went out, so I was showering by headlamp. And then you get to your bunk room and it's like these flat mattresses that literally all of us blew up our pads and put them on top of the mattresses because it was more comfortable. And because we didn't have any power, it got so hot there, so we had to open the windows. It was just a mess.
Another thing, Hot Springs is where, not Hot Springs. Hot Springs is where I remedied this issue. The knock is where the shoulder straps of my Gregory backpack started to tear off.
I had to sew them.
It's safe for all of you guys out there. Gregory, they make an okay backpack. When they say 35-pound weight limit, they mean closer to 30 because they say 35 is where it starts tearing. And I had that thing close to 30 to 35 and the shoulder straps tore off, which is a big issue for a backpack.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I was able to make it to Hot Springs where I bought an Osprey bag, which I love that thing. I will sing the praise of Osprey so much more than Gregory. I love my Osprey. It feels like I could throw it off a cliff, walk down, pick it up, and it would be none the worse for wear. It is a tank of a bag. It is like 4.5 pounds completely empty and dry, which is very heavy for a backpack. But I love that thing. I stand by it. I had a couple of carries where I was carrying 45, 48, 50 pounds, and I will stand by that because one of those 50 pounds was fudge, and it was so nice to carry a pound of fudge out of town.
Absolutely ridiculous.
So yeah, the knock was not great.
Yeah, the knock definitely.
Oh, and it was not cheap either.
Oh no!
Yeah, you're paying for something. We had no power. We were in the showers with our headlamps. Like it just is not good.
Yeah, it was real sketch. I think we pay $40 a person for a bunk, which in the north, that's completely normal. That's actually kind of cheap in the north, depending on where you're going. But in the south, like you're paying 25 to 35 bucks for a bunk at a hostel.
Considering where they were and how far away from everything they were, I rather would have tented for free down by where everything was, where the food was.
Yeah, it was
a better experience.
I think the worst
Mountain
part.
Harbor?
Do what?
How much was Mountain Harbor? The bunks there.
I want to say it was
something?
35, and then it was like $14 for breakfast.
Yeah.
Way better.
Way better bag for your buck.
Yeah, and we didn't have to walk as far. I think the biggest thing for us with the knock is like this may shock you guys, but thru hikers do not like to do any extra mileage. Like we signed up for 2,198.4 miles and we do not want to do anything extra. So we like if I could walk a quarter of a mile to get between places repeatedly, like between the bunkhouse and the restaurant and the outfitter and like the laundry and everything else, like I don't want to do that. I don't want to add 2 extra miles to my day if I have to walk that twice, So I think that was
half a mile to go to the bathroom.
I know. I don't want to walk any extra.
When it's on a hill like this.
Yeah, it was just quite the hell. Now, one of the questions that we got before the live cast was actually for Snapshot regarding fitness, since we're talking about walking places. So it was for Christus Cabo. He said, so I understand you were a distance runner prior to your thru hike. With that said, did you experience a difference between being in shape and in mountain shape?
Yes and no. So here's the thing. I was kind of a distance runner before the trail. I did a couple half marathons, one full marathon. So my body was used to endurance training. My legs had gone through endurance training before. I think going into a hike that's 2,200 miles, that helped me a lot, because as soon as I got to the point where my legs started getting fatigued day after day, I've been there before. So the feeling was familiar to me. I knew how beat up my legs were. I knew how hard I could push myself, because I'd been doing that through marathon training. So I think it was an asset. I think my legs could kick into gear and they were used to that kind of training. However, there is a difference between being a runner and hiking over rocks and roots and mud and rock climbing. So it helps to a certain extent, but there are parts of the trail that require movements and maneuvering yourself in such a way that you really can't train for other than just hiking. So yes, it was an asset, but it was not everything. And while a lot of the long distance runners I met on trail were doing fine, it's always a wild card when you're put up against mountains in the whites and you're put into new situations where your body has never moved in this way before, and you're sliding down a rock face in the rain. And so the short answer is yes, it's helpful, but it's not a solution for training. I guess that's the way I'd say it.
You had the cardio, but it uses different muscles when you're climbing hand over hand in the whites and when you're squatting with 35 pounds on your back, you know?
Exactly.
All right, so question from the chat. Cobweb got a chance to see her hubby, MC's mom, was all over. She was. Thanks, MCM. We love you. And Snapshot, were you able to have any friends or family come visit? If it was in a video, I don't remember.
So only a couple times. The first time I saw family was in Northern Virginia. My aunt and uncle, who live just outside of DC, came to visit and brought us lunch. They rode out on the motorcycle and brought us lunch. That was the first time I saw any kind of family. It was so nice. And then I met up with more family at the halfway point at Harper's Ferry. We all took 2 days off. We split, went our separate ways, saw family for a couple days, and then reconvened a couple days later. That was great. It was a perfect break. I recommend that to anyone hiking the trail. Plan for like at least a couple days off in the middle. It's refreshing, not only for your body, but mentally too. It's good to just see family and catch up and reset yourself before you dive into the second half of the hike. Other than that, family at the halfway point, and then I pushed on the last half, and that was it for me, because I'm on the West Coast, so it's a lot harder to arrange that. Not true. I saw my brother in New York City.
Yeah, we did.
We went to New York from Pauling on one particularly crazy, rainy morning. We're like, well, we could just go into New York, we said as a joke, and then that was the plan. We looked at the train schedules and rode into New York. And it was worth it. It was improv 2-0, and it was a good time.
It was a blast. All right, so we got to... What'd you say, MC?
Nobody wanted to hike that day.
Oh no, it was mud pits too, that section.
We were under that overhang, and then I remember Cobweb just walked up. She's like, "You guys would just go to New York?" And I looked at Snapshot and I was like, "Yeah, sure."
Actual facts.
It was great.
All right, so someone asked, do you guys plan an annual get-together to mark any specific AT accomplishment? The answer is we are hoping to get together around Trail Days next year, because Trail Days, as you guys know, is the big hiker party. That's basically like the family reunion for every class of AT hiker there's ever been. And we'd like to do a Tramily reunion hike and some trail magic around that time too. So hopefully we can get everybody together to do that.
In the works.
Yep. Someone said, I am an occasional weekend backpacker. I roll my ankles at every trip, so I keep wearing mid-high boots. Did you all wear low trail runners, and did any of you roll your ankles? You guys want to
We
start on
should
that
all
one?
talk about our experiences. Yeah. So for
I'll go
me,
first. You'll go first.
wait, who's going first? Am I going first?
You.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go.
So, yes, I wore trail runners the entire trail. I have hiked in larger boots before, but they don't work for me. A, because I get blisters in them, and because they're generally heavy and they do not dry out quickly. So on a trail like the AT, you're getting endless rain, and you need your shoes to be able to dry out effectively. And the only way to do that is to use trail runners that have a mesh on the top. As far as rolling ankles, I did some minor rolls here and there, but nothing that was painful in any way. And the thing that a lot of people don't think about when they're using trail runners or making that decision is when you use trail runners after a while, you're forcing your body to develop the muscles that hold your foot into place and keep it stable. If you're wearing boots, the shoe's doing that for you. But when you're wearing trail runners, you're training your body to do that, and you're actually becoming stronger from it. So something else to think about. I saw most people wore trail runners, but some people wore boots, and it ultimately comes down to what works for you. So don't take it too seriously. Just wear what is comfortable. That's what I say.
On that exact note, I wore trail runners the entire time. I rolled my left ankle one time, very early on in North Carolina. I rolled my left ankle, and that was the only ankle. Well, that wasn't the only ankle injury I got. That was the only injury I got from rolling my ankle. I injured my right ankle while falling down Mount Madison, descending the Whites, and I lived. So
No one made it
still
off
here.
Madison unscathed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I also wore just regular trail runners the whole trail. I used to be in the boots camp, and I last year in June, I think it was, I actually grade 2 sprained my ankle. So that's like the grade where your whole ankle and foot swells up, and it looks very cartoonish, and you really can't walk on it, but you do anyway. In a pair of boots when I was on trail. I also always got terrible blisters when I wore boots. So when I started the AT, I decided, screw the ankle, I'm just going to try trail runners because they breathe better. And I went 2,198.4 plus miles because, we ended up hiking, I think I did the math afterwards, like 2,554.05 miles total. Like all of the walking we did the entire time we were out there. Blue blazing, town walking, like the white blazes, that was our whole thing. But I went all of that without any blisters whatsoever, and I think that was due to the ventilation in the shoes. Also, like Snapshot said, we made our ankles really, really strong because you would roll your foot a million different ways, throughout the day, every day, because you'd hit a rock, then you'd hit a root, then you'd hit a rock and a root, and then, some combination thereof. You'd trip anytime you were walking on a flat. That was a requirement. I did sprain my left ankle, which was the one that had been previously sprained, when I was coming down Mount Washington because I stepped off a wet rock onto a wet rock, heard it crack, and thought I really messed something up because I landed directly on top of it, and my ankle actually just folded in half, basically, the wrong direction. It folded in, and I landed on top of it with a 35-pound pack on. So, that wasn't great, but thankfully it was just a minor sprain, so I was able to walk on it the rest of the way. I did use KT tape a lot, except when it was wet and hot and then it wouldn't stick. I used a couple of different like elastic ankle braces. I think the one I ended up using for the rest of the trail was like a $5 brace from Dollar General because it was like having a third sock on, but it wasn't rigid, so it wasn't hurting my skin when I wore it. So that's the answer to that one. Somebody else asked, do you plan to provide trail magic to future hikers? Yes, we do.
Most certainly.
Yeah, we got some absolutely incredible trail magic along the way, and I cannot even put it into words how much of a difference that makes to a thru hiker, to any hikers. I mean, even section, weekend, day hike. I mean, like somebody gives you something that you are not expecting out of the goodness of their heart. Like that makes a huge impact on your day. So we definitely want to be able to be there to give that back to others.
probably do something
Honestly,
in North Carolina, Virginia area next year sometime. Set up a big
let's
booth.
just roll up with a bunch of salads. Some salads. Those hikers will love us. You do that in Georgia, people will be like, "You're weird." You do that in
so
like
strange.
Vermont, people are like, "You
The best.
are a saint."
Yeah, we missed so much fresh things when we were on trail, especially during the summertime, because you just couldn't pack anything fresh out of town. It didn't live. You walked out of town and everything died.
Snapshot, the size of those salads we got in Gatlinburg.
Oh yeah,
Mellow
those are
mushroom.
great.
The salads that were
It's like the first greens we had on trail.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Oh,
ate the whole
so
thing.
good.
All right, so I'm gonna answer a few more questions. If you guys have any last minute questions, throw them in the chat now, because we're going on like an hour, so I want to try to wrap this up so we don't hold you hostage all night. Oh, somebody threw one in already. All right, what do you plan to provide for Trail Magic? If it's cold,
Salads.
if it's cold, hot drinks, coffee, tea, sandwiches are always, and we loved sandwiches. As much as I would love to be like that guy Moose that gave us ice cream out of a cooler in New Jersey, I don't think we could swing that. He said that cooler cost him so much money.
Yeah.
What else did you guys want to bring as Trail Magic?
Everything is very weather dependent, right?
Yeah.
So if it's cold outside, we always wanted something hot. If it's hot, we want icy cold drinks. Like one time in the Smokies, we got ice cold Cokes when it was pouring cold rain on us. And while the gesture was amazing, I didn't want it. So I think we're going to pay attention to the weather and make sure that, and think about, well, if we were hiking today, what would we want?
Yeah. By the way, that is not a criticism of any Trail Magic we've received, because we gratefully received everything that we got. But for us thinking in the future, coming from, being on the trail, we definitely like weather dependent for sure. And also, I think hopefully we can get a day with Trail Magic. This would suck for us, but it would be amazing for the hikers on like a cold, wet, rainy day, because, it's not fun for us to be out there then. It wasn't fun for the trail angels to be out there then. But man, that was the best magic.
Yeah, definitely. Especially the ones that have cover from the rain, so you can sit on a dry seat for half an hour. Oh, so good.
So Snapshot, you actually went through and did the math on this, because none of us actually knew by the end of the hike. What was our average mileage per day with and without our zeros included? Because we ended up taking 20 zeros out of our 100. For me, it was 184 days on trail, and you guys were 186 days on trail.
So average hiking day excluding zeros was 13.3 miles, and the average day including zeros was 11.9 miles. And we took a total of 20 0 days over the course of 6 months.
Yeah, but that averages just under a zero every 100 miles.
It felt good. It felt like a good pace.
Better to phrase it that way.
Yeah.
I mean,
we hiked fast enough to get it done, but we hiked slow enough to see and enjoy everything along the way.
Yes.
Yeah, I think 6 months is the perfect sweet spot to do it. I mean, we met people like in Pennsylvania, the guy who had done it in 90 days, that kid. And he'd already done it this season in 90 days. And then he's up doing Trail Magic for us where we're like, just over halfway done, and it's like, dude, what are you doing? And then there are people that take no rush, that take a full year to do the trail.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I think 6 months is the perfect sweet spot of where you're not, like Snapshot said, you're not in a rush and you're not like just trying to speed through it, just trying to get it done, but also you're not rushed by the deadline of like, we gotta make it before Katahdin closes, we gotta hurry. It's it's perfect. I like it.
Yeah,
I think we did a good job.
Also, I mean, our longest day hiking was 25.2 miles. We knew people who would pull 30s all the time. That just wasn't us. My body started getting really tired. Anytime we went above 18 miles, my body was like, okay, so we're done for the day yet? It's,
we figured out pretty quickly that the trail is about more than conquering as many miles as you can in a day.
Yeah,
so
it is.
We got
it's
miles
about
over miles,
experience.
and it was worth it.
Any regrets about your year? I don't think so. It was a wild.
I feel like you
year,
ask anybody, and Yeah, I mean, you can probably put, like, in hindsight, I have done a couple, gear or things differently? Maybe, but on the whole, I think everything worked out really well.
I could say one regret. I wish I had stayed away from that freaking shelter at Big Bald, where we all got sick. That's my regret.
We all
dodged that one. Everyone got sick there.
We all regretted Noro. Oh man. Oh, one entertaining question I got before we
definitely got sick. That sucks.
Yeah, Noro sucks, guys. It's one of those things that just follows you up and down the trail. It really does. Like, the fact of the matter is, people aren't cleaning your privies every night. The only thing that kills it is bleach. So thank you to all of the trail angels and trail maintainers that actually went through and bleached shelters when Nora was running rampant through the bubble. Because people did that. They carried bleach out and bleached out the shelters and the privs. But like hand sanitizer, which is what everybody uses to clean up in the woods, because you can't exactly carry a sink in your back pocket, doesn't kill it either. So if you have soap sheets like I did, wash your hands after you visit a privy anytime. But if you're the only person washing your hands, everybody else is sanitizing, and you're still sharing surfaces like picnic tables, shelters, your your chances of getting Noro are going high. So. Alrighty, well, my computer is starting to give up on this broadcast, and we've gone a little over an hour, so we're going to wrap it up here, but I just wanted to say thank you to the guys for being here for this live Q&A, and thank you to everyone who showed up for us tonight. We really appreciated being able to, quote unquote, see you. Thank you for commenting in the chat and asking us questions. And thank you to everyone who will watch this later, not live. If you guys come up with any questions after this broadcast, please feel free to put them in the comments below. I will do my best to get them answered. And even if it is a person-specific question, I will ask the guys and get their answers in the chat below. So thank you guys again. There's more content to come on this channel, and please feel free to comment those questions. Thank you. Bye guys, and goodbye everybody.